Reputation, just reputation. That's what I listen to.
Thank you for being on theme. Hold on, Brandon has some nice things to say about me before you wrap.
Have you seen these pants?
No, they're amazing, and my shoes.
This movie really took over our life for the past year and a half. So
the boots were mine. There's these great Louboutins that are also a close-up on them when we're dancing in the bar. Those are mine.
So the iconic rooftop scene in this movie, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that, but you now.
First of all, congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's so sweet. I'm gonna put it here because it doesn't go with my outfit, but I will wear it later.
I'm literally heading to Target to get my Blake Brown by shampoo.
It's honestly amazing.
I just released it
Smells
today.
incredible.
I would have had it.
Oh, yeah,
Smells
she has it.
incredible.
Yeah, it's
Oh my god, amazing.
I'm wearing it
Thank
on my
you
neck as
so
cologne.
The chemistry with Justin also was off the charts. You were even the intimacy coordinator in some of those sexier scenes. Like we saw you.
That shouldn't be happening, by the way. I just want to be clear that you should not be the intimacy coordinator. You should definitely hire intimacy coordinators, which we did have.
Well,
thank goodness.
You were teaching Justin how to pull you in.
Where have you seen
this?
I actually just saw it too. It was on Instagram yesterday, I think. Yeah.
So you're supposed to, tell a story well and make people feel, but you're also supposed to do it in a way that is safe and respectful for all. Yeah, when I think of my involvement in the film, I don't really see that as the thing that I did. I did probably everything else.
Blake Lively suing Justin Baldoni was honestly something that I truly saw coming. If you were following all of the drama that was surrounding the movie It Ends With Us and its production, all of the rumors surrounding production saying that Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively weren't getting along on set, and considering Blake Lively was the one that was coming out looking bad during all of this, it was only a matter of time before someone took legal action, and the first person to take legal action was Blake Lively. So the other day I went into everything that led to this lawsuit. If you haven't watched that video yet and you're new to all of the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively drama, I'll go ahead and link it, I don't know, somewhere up here so that way you guys can go and check that out. But today I wanted to go over Blake Lively's lawsuit. I read the New York Times article and I also read her complaint from beginning to end, and I wanted to just go over it in today's video and also give you a little bit of the fan reaction to it and some of Hollywood's reaction to this lawsuit because it was surprising. So this is the infamous New York Times article that introduced the world to everything that was going on while on set of It Ends With Us between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. The New York Times article was titled, "We Can Bury Anyone. Inside a Hollywood Smear Machine, Private Messages Detail an Alleged Campaign to Tarnish Blake Lively After She Accused Justin Baldoni of Misconduct on the Set of It Ends With Us." The Times article reads, during shooting, Blake Lively, the co-star, had complained that the men had repeatedly violated physical boundaries and made sexual and other inappropriate comments to her. What were those sexual and inappropriate comments? Well, we have to go to this right here. Really quickly, filming began in May of 2023 for It Ends With Us, and it halted on June 15th of 2023. And during that time is when all of this stuff allegedly happened. Production halted due to the writer's strike. So everything that Blake Lively alleges in her claim happened between the months of May and June before the writer's strike happened. Now, once they were cleared to go back to work, they had a meeting on January 4th, where the parties discussed in detail the inappropriate conduct that Miss Lively, her employees, and other cast and crew experienced at the hands of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. And in this claim, it goes over 30 points, and all of these things were the things that Blake Lively alleged happened on the set, and they went through them point by point at this meeting. Attendees at the meeting included Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, a representative from Sony Pictures, Alex Sack, who was a producer on the film, Todd Black, who was also a producer on the film, Blake Lively, who also had the agreed upon right to have a representative present, and she chose Ryan Reynolds. So I really quickly want to point out that it is alleged that all of this was able to happen between the months of May and June because Wayfarer Studios did not adhere to standard industry safety protocols. Let's get into the 30 points that were discussed in this meeting, and then I've read through this whole claim, so I'll give you a little background on what they were talking about during these 30 points. No more showing nude videos or images of women, including the producer's wife, to Blake Lively and or her employees. This had to do with a scene where Blake Lively was supposed to give birth, and that Justin Baldoni pressured Blake Lively into filming the scene fully naked. He also said that it's not normal for women to give birth in hospital gowns, and Blake Lively felt pressured into giving in and coming up with a compromise, so she was naked from below the chest down. While all of this was happening, apparently Jamie Heath came up to her and showed her a video of his wife giving birth, and Blake Lively thought that it was pornography, and she asked him like if his wife was okay with him just showing that video around to anybody, and apparently he said that his wife isn't weird about that stuff, implying that Blake Lively was weird for not welcoming it. Number 2, no more mention of Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath's previous pornography addiction or Blake Lively's lack of pornography consumption to Blake Lively or other crew members. On the first day of production, apparently Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath were sharing stories about their past with Blake Lively, and specifically I guess this one incident where Justin Baldoni was hooking up with this one girl, decided that she wasn't the one, so he ended up not seeing her anymore, and Mr. Heath ended up seeing her, and this disturbed Blake Lively, and it's claimed that, quote, Miss Lively found this description of passing along a woman to be disrespectful and disturbing. About their pornography addiction, apparently they talked about it on set a lot, and in hopes that she would get him to stop talking about it, she took him aside and told him, like, you know, she was uncomfortable and that she's never watched pornography before, and apparently he ended up telling other people that Blake Lively had never seen porn. And, quote, it was an incredible invasion of her privacy to discuss any aspect of her intimate life with the cast and crew, much less reveal something that she had only told Mr. Baldoni to try to get him to stop talking about the subject with her. Number 3, no more discussions to Blake Lively and her employees about personal experiences with sex, including as it relates to spouses or others. So apparently there were scenes that were added to the film where Blake Lively was supposed to have the big O on camera, and she objected to these being in the film, but Justin Baldoni made like one last attempt to try and keep one specific scene in the film, and the reason he wanted to keep it in was apparently, quote, he was making the film through the female gaze. The scene that he wanted to keep in the movie was a scene that happened in their character's wedding night, and apparently while he was, you know, trying to get them to add the scene back in, he intrusively asked Blake Lively if she had ever climaxed together with her husband, Ryan Reynolds, and she refused to answer. She thought it was a huge invasion of privacy, and she just refused to discuss it. Point number 4 that was brought up at this January 3rd meeting was no more mention to Blake Lively or her employees of personal times that physical consent was not given in sexual acts as either the abuser or the abused. So what is she talking about here? Apparently her and Justin Baldoni were in a car together, and he was sharing a lot of stories with her that caused him to re-examine his past. And I quote, he then said, did I always ask for consent? No. Did I always listen when they said no? No. Mr. Baldoni claimed this was an example of how we all have things from which we can learn and grow. Miss Lively was unsettled by Mr. Baldoni's suggestion that he had engaged in sexual conduct without consent. And apparently after Justin Baldoni got out of the car, her driver turned around and told her that he didn't want her to be alone with Justin Baldoni moving forward. Number 5, no more descriptions of their own genitalia to Blake Lively. Honestly, I don't know where that is in this claim. I could have missed it. If I did, please leave it in the comments down below. Number 6, no more jokes or disparaging comments to be made to Blake Lively and or her employees about HR complaints Wayfair has already received on set or about missing the HR meeting. So what is she talking about here? Blake Lively assesses that Justin Baldoni would often refer to women on the set as sexy, and he would say like, it's okay, I can say that because my wife is here today. And specifically there was this one time where Blake came in with like this low-cut dress, and she wore that dress specifically because she needed to nurse her baby. And then, quote, Mr. Baldoni commented about how much he liked her outfit, which flustered Miss Lively. So he gave her a compliment on the dress and she felt uncomfortable. Later on that day, she was in her costume and her coat was zipped all the way up and she had a onesie underneath. And apparently Justin Baldoni asked her to undo her coat so he could see her outfit because, quote, it was zipped low to reveal her lace bra. And then Blake Lively says that Justin Baldoni told her, I think you look sexy. And then she said, that's not what I'm going for. So then he said, oh, I'm sorry, hot. And then she said, not that either. And Justin Baldoni replied, well, I guess I missed the HR meeting. Number 7, no more inquiries by Mr. Baldoni to Blake Lively's trainer without her knowledge or consent to disclose her weight. And this was actually one of the things that leaked back in August. Blake Lively alleges that less than 4 months after she gave birth, Justin Baldoni went behind her back and asked her trainer how much she weighed. And she alleges that Justin Baldoni wanted her to lose weight in 2 weeks in order for this scene to happen where he picks her up. But Blake Lively alleges that there was no scene where he needed to pick her up. And then apparently Blake Lively caught strep throat and Justin Baldoni suggested a doctor to go to. And when Blake Lively reached out to this doctor or went to this doctor and was filling out forms, she found out that it was a weight loss specialist. Number 8, no more mention by Mr. Baldoni of him speaking to Blake Lively's dead father. This one was kind of weird. Like, I didn't know what to make of this. I was like, how on earth is he speaking to Blake Lively's dead father? This was like a really weird thing to discuss, but apparently Blake Lively claims that Justin Baldoni told her that he can speak to the dead, and on several occasions told her that he had conversations with her dead father. Quote, it was off-putting and violative for Mr. Baldoni to claim a personal relationship with her recently deceased father. That one was kind of weird. I don't know what to make of that. Number 9, no more pressing by Mr. Baldoni to Blake Lively to disclose her religious beliefs or unsolicited sharing of his. Again, I couldn't find this or anything relating to Justin Baldoni's religion in this claim. I could have missed it. If I did, again, please leave it in the comment below. Number 10, if Blake Lively and or her infant is exposed to COVID, again, Blake Lively must be provided with immediate notice as soon as Wayfair or any other producers become aware of such exposure without her needing to uncover it days later for herself. So apparently what happened with COVID was that there was a COVID outbreak on set and Blake was unaware of it, and she claims that because Wayfair didn't have like COVID insurance or something, they kind of wanted to keep it hush hush. Due to the fact that she didn't know that there was a COVID outbreak, she ended up catching COVID along with her child. Number 11, an intimacy coordinator must be present at all times when Blake Lively is on set in scenes with Mr. Baldoni. So like I said at the beginning of the video, Wayfair Studios were not adhering to SAG-AFTRA like rules and regulations, and they allege that there was a lack of an intimacy coordinator. Number 12, no more personal physical touching of or sexual comments by Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath to be tolerated by Blake Lively and any of her employees, as well as any female cast or crew without their express consent. Again, Blake Lively alleges that there were other actors on set, other people involved in production who were very uncomfortable with the way Justin Baldoni like often called them sexy. Number 13, no improvising of kissing. An intimate touch must be choreographed in advance with Blake Lively and an intimacy coordinator. No biting or sucking of the lip without Blake Lively's consent. And all intimate on-camera touch and conversations must be in character, not spoken from Mr. Baldoni to Blake Lively personally. So what happened with this? Apparently Justin Baldoni would frequently improvise kissing scenes, and during one take he bit her lip, and that was not choreographed. And Blake Lively said that he often did this. Also, the claim that all conversations must be in character while they're shooting comes from a scene where they're supposed to be dancing or something and music is playing overhead, so like there's no line of dialogue, it's just a scene where they're supposed to be like dancing or something, and Justin Baldoni goes and like smells her neck or something, whispered to Blake Lively that like she smells good, and it made her feel uncomfortable because he was saying this as Justin Baldoni, not as his character. Number 14, Blake Lively to have a representative on set at all times with a monitor during scenes involving nudity, sexual activity, or violence with Mr. Baldoni. Number 15, all actors participating with Blake Lively in intimate scenes involving her being in any state of nudity or simulated nudity must be classified as active working actors, not friends of the director or producers, and must be pre-approved by Blake Lively. These 2 points kind of go hand in hand with one of the complaints that she had, and that being the birthing scene again. She claims in this filing that the birthing scene was not a closed set. There were many people that didn't need to be there that were on set. As far as scenes need to be filmed with working actors, not friends of the director, that's referring to the actor that they hired for the role of the doctor who's supposed to deliver Blake's baby. They said that those bit parts usually go to local actors, and in this case, it ended up going to one of Justin Baldoni's friends. Number 16, no more filming of any Blake Lively nudity without a fully executive SAG-compliant nudity writer in place. Any such footage already shot without this writer in place and in direct violation of SAG requirements may not be used without Blake Lively and her legal representatives prior to written consent. Number 17, any scene by Blake Lively or another performer depicting the character of Lily that involves nudity or simulated sex must be conducted strictly in accordance with the above referenced nudity writer and must adhere to the Blake Lively approved script. And again, these are all points that were brought up in this January meeting with Justin Baldoni, and they were kind of like a list of demands that they needed to agree upon. Now, these 2 points were inserted here because, like I said before, Blake Lively alleges that Wayfair Studios didn't do enough to provide the safety that the actors need in order to film scenes that involve nudity or violence safely. Number 19, no monitors to be viewed or accessible on set or remotely during closed set scenes except by Blake Lively approved essential crew and personnel. And then all of that goes back to the birthing scene again. Blake Lively claims that it wasn't a closed set. People were able to come and go as they please. Quote, Mr. Heath and Mr. Baldoni also failed to close the set, allowing non-essential crew to pass through while Miss Lively was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia. Number 20, no more entering, attempting to enter, interrupting, pressuring, or asking Blake Lively to enter her trailer or the makeup trailer by Mr. Heath or Mr. Baldoni while she is nude for any reason. Apparently, Blake Lively had all of these complaints during filming. She wanted to have a meeting with with Jamie Heath and other producers on the film in order to discuss Justin Baldoni's behavior, unprofessional behavior on set. And she claims that rather than set a time and a place for the meeting, Jamie Heath arrived unannounced to her makeup trailer when she was trying to remove some body makeup and told her, like, if we don't have this meeting now, then it's not going to happen. So she felt pressure to let him in the trailer, and she told him, just not to look at her. And apparently he didn't do that. He was staring directly at her while she was topless. And apparently all of this happened. She had all of these complaints, and it was only the second day of filming. Number 21, no more private multi-hour meetings in Blake Lively's trailer with Mr. Baldoni crying with no outside Blake Lively appointed representative to monitor. This one again was kind of like a weird one. This goes into like the body shaming aspect of Blake Lively's complaint, because apparently Justin Baldoni went into her trailer and showed Blake Lively a bunch of photos that were taken like by the paparazzi, and he was crying because Blake Lively didn't look sexy enough in these photos. And apparently he was in there long enough crying that it halted production for hours on set. And again, this is all alleged by Blake Lively. Number 22, no more pressing by Mr. Baldoni to sage any of Blake Lively's employees. I didn't find anything in this claim that talks about Justin Baldoni saging any of her employees. And once again, I want to state that this was like all during the January meeting with Justin Baldoni. This was like a list of demands plus a list of complaints from Blake Lively. Number 23, producer Alex Sachs to be given standard rights, inclusion, and authority per her job description and as represented to Blake Lively when signing on. 24, Sony must have an active daily role in overseeing physical production for the remainder of the film to monitor safety for cast and crew, schedule logistics, problem solving, and creative. Apparently, Blake Lively raised a bunch of complaints to producers on the film, to Wayfarer Studios, but because all of them were all working together, she didn't feel like there was going to be an internal investigation into all of these complaints. So she went to Sony. But because Sony was only a distributor of the film, they told her that she needed to raise these complaints with Wayfarer Studios. So I suppose this is the reason why they wanted Sony to have an active daily role in overseeing the production of the film. Number 25, engagement of an experienced producer to supervise the safety of the cast and crew. Number 26, engagement of a Blake Lively approved A-list stunt double to perform Lily in scenes with Mr. Baldoni involving rape and or violence. Blake Lively to perform only close-up work or work from a Blake Lively pre-approved shot list in scenes with Mr. Baldoni involving sexual violence. Number 27, no more adding of sex scenes, oral sex, or on-camera climaxing by Blake Lively outside the scope of the script Blake Lively approved when signing onto the project. Number 28, no more asking or pressuring Blake Lively to cross physical picket lines. Again, all of this was happening either during or towards the end of the writer's strike. In this complaint, I didn't read anything about Justin Baldoni pressuring her to cross the picket lines. I think that this was just something that was discussed during this January meeting. Number 29, no more retaliatory or abusive behavior to Blake Lively for raising concerns or requesting safeguards. Blake Lively claims that Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath would act cold towards her if she didn't have any type of reaction to the things that they were telling her. Number 30, an in-person meeting before production resumes with Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, Miss Sachs, the Sony representative, the new producer Blake Lively, and Blake Lively's spouse Ryan Reynolds to confirm and approve a plan for implementation of the above that will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of Blake Lively, her employees, and all the cast and crew moving forward. And apparently they agreed on 17 points. And those 17 points are here: protections to return to production. And it shows here that it was signed by Jamie Heath and Blake Lively. Those were all of the points and complaints and demands that Blake Lively raised at that January meeting. Apparently after that meeting, it unsettled Justin Baldoni, and he was worried about retaliation or worried about any of this leaking to the press that would sour his public image. And in this claim, it goes over Justin Baldoni's crafted public image as, quote, not just an ally, but also a fierce advocate for women. It talked about the podcast he runs. It talks about the books that he wrote. It talks about his TED Talks. In fact, it included a whole lot of quotes from Justin Baldoni. It claims that in wanting to protect that publicly crafted image, Justin Baldoni hired a crisis PR manager. And that's where the alleged smear campaign started. And a bunch of the text messages that are going viral came from this apparent smear campaign started by Justin Baldoni and his two PR crisis managers. Once they returned to filming, everything was fine. The film released, and during the release of the film, during the marketing of the film, is when Blake Lively alleges that she thought that Justin Baldoni switched the marketing to something different in order to start a smear campaign against her. So it says in this lawsuit that the marketing plan directed the cast to focus more on Lily's strength and and resilience as opposed to describing the films as a story about domestic violence, and to avoid talking about this film that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. So that was one of the reasons why people were noticing Blake Lively going on such a different promotion of the film and giving these weird answers to all of these heavy questions. They weren't supposed to describe it as a story about domestic violence, even though that's what it was about. They weren't supposed to describe that. Here's where I'll give my 2 cents about that. Personally, I think that was a terrible marketing strategy. While the book does deal with domestic violence, it deals with heavy issues, there are ways to market your film and talk about domestic violence in a way that doesn't have to be as heavy. But to ignore it altogether is to ignore and refusing to acknowledge victims of domestic violence. And it's so funny to me because Justin Baldoni hired the No More Foundation to work alongside production of this film. And the No More Foundation is dedicated to ending domestic violence by increasing awareness, inspiring action, and fueling culture change. And you can't do any of that if you refuse to talk about it. So I honestly don't understand this marketing. Those are just my thoughts on the marketing campaign for this movie. I think it's an incredibly deceptive marketing campaign. In my opinion, I don't think that Hollywood really understands fandom. And if you can see behind me, I'm a part of a lot of fandoms. And if you're part of a fandom, then you are very much invested. This book got popularized on Book Talk. It went viral, and people have been following this news for a very long time. The people that are invested in this book, the people that love this book, the people that popularized this book have been following all of this from the beginning. And there has been a lot of chatter surrounding the casting, surrounding Blake Lively's style. There were tons of TikToks coming out about the way she styled Lily in this movie, and they didn't like it. It was already negative. All of that was already negative. Why? Because there were fans of the book. And while the film was shooting, people were following that and reporting on that as well. So naturally, the natural progression is for these fans of the movie to follow all of the interviews. They want to know what Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively have to say about their characters. And they were incredibly confused when Blake Lively was marketing this movie and talking about this movie as if it was a romantic comedy. And people started to mock that on social media. A lot of things that I've learned by being on social media a whole lot is that you can't control a fan reaction, unfortunately. But Blake Lively seems to think that you can. In this lawsuit, it alleges that all of this stuff that was happening on TikTok, all of this negative press was happening due to a smear campaign by Justin Baldoni. It says, in the days leading up to the film's release, Mr. Baldoni abruptly pivoted away from the film's marketing plan and the types of publicity activities in which he had previously participated. And the reason for this switch was they claim that Justin Baldoni realized everybody had unfollowed him on social media, that nobody was going to appear with him in public. And so he ended up switching the marketing plan, and quote, he and his team used domestic violence survivor content to protect his public image. Quote, Mr. Baldoni and his team described as social manipulation designed to destroy Miss Lively's reputation. They allege that Justin Baldoni was prepared to spend an upwards of $100 million in order to ruin the lives of Blake Lively and her family for, quote, Miss Lively exercising her legally protected right to speak up about their misconduct on set. So in this claim, they have a bunch of text messages that go over any and all strategies that they're prepared to move forward with should Blake Lively make her grievances public. And that's what these text messages are. The first text deals with the scenario planning. Justin Baldoni is talking with Jennifer Abel in this sense and talking about how they can shut stories down if anything comes out. In these texts, Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan exchange the following text talking about how, quote, Justin Baldoni, quote, wants to feel like she can be buried. Melissa Nathan writes, of course, but when we send over documents, we can't send over the work we will or could do because that could get us in a lot of trouble. And this conversation is between Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel, allegedly talking about strategies in this social media takedown of Blake Lively, alleging that Justin Baldoni, quote, wants to feel like she can be buried, saying that if they send documents, they can get in trouble. Melissa Nathan texts Jennifer Abel and says, we can bury anyone, but I don't want to write that to him. I will. And then a few few days later, Justin Baldoni texts this story of Hailey Bieber saying, this is what we would need. And it's a story about Hailey Bieber being a bully. The complaint goes on to say that they retained subcontractors, including a Texas-based contractor named Jed Wallace. And they would always go back and refer to Jed whenever they would notice something on social media. And Jed would keep track of it. If anybody noticed anything negative towards Justin Baldoni in the press, then they would flag that over to Jed. And allegedly, it would either get buried or they would just like keep track of it and see if it gained any steam. They also allege that Jed and his team's efforts shift the narrative against Miss Lively. In this text message, it says, we've also started to see a shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. And then the same day, Melissa Nathan writes, the majority of socials are so pro Justin and I don't even agree with half of them, lol. They're discussing how lucky Justin Baldoni is for all of this good press surrounding him. Apparently they're celebrating how they were able to shut down stories of Blake Lively's HR complaints. They talk about how they circulated this news article, is Blake Lively set to be canceled? Melissa Nathan shared this with Jennifer Abel, and Jennifer Abel responded by saying, wow, you really outdid yourself with this piece. And Melissa Nathan said, that's why you hired me, right? I'm the best. And apparently all of this was a social manipulation. It was a campaign that was maliciously started in order to smear Blake Lively. And apparently this was done in order to, one, seal any type of misconduct and hide all of those HR complaints and all of the bad things that Blake Lively alleges Justin Baldoni did while on set. And two, to retaliate against Blake Lively for raising those complaints and coming after Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, and Wayfair by damaging her brand, by harming her businesses and causing her family like emotional strife. All of this was done. This whole marketing strategy, this whole Blake Lively social media takedown was apparently, allegedly in this lawsuit done to retaliate against Blake Lively and all of those HR complaints, those 30 points that we went over. This also talks about how all the negative press had a negative effect on Blake Lively. She couldn't get out of bed. She didn't want to go outside in public. She suffered from, quote, grief, fear, trauma, and extreme anxiety. It says that Ryan Reynolds, too, has, quote, been affected mentally, physically, and professionally by his wife's and children's pain. It also talks about how Blake Lively had to limit her comments on Instagram because she was getting influx of negative comments. But when I was actually going over all of this, I noticed that like the comments, it was towards what she had said to that interviewer about her little bump. They were commenting, congratulating her on her little bump. That was the majority of the comments that I saw when I was going over this back in August. This complaint goes on to talk about how it has damaged her brands, including, and more specifically, her launched hair care line, Blake Brown. So what was the fan reaction to all of this? What was the Hollywood reaction to all of this? Well, there were multiple people who came out in support of Blake Lively after she filed that complaint against Justin Baldoni. Those people include her co-stars from Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Colleen Hoover, the author of It Ends With Us, put out a statement supporting Blake Lively. Paul Feig came out in support of Blake Lively. Her sister, Robin Lively, came out in support of Blake Lively, putting out a story on her Instagram, writing, finally, justice for my sister. Sean Levy also shared the story on his Instagram, saying that he was proud to be Blake's friend. Amy Schumer came out for Blake Lively. And finally, Amber Heard came out in support of Blake Lively, to a mixed public reaction, considering her trial with Johnny Depp. Fan reaction was mixed when this was announced. This is the New York Times post over on X. Another lady using institutional sexism to try and destroy a man. I'm sorry for Blake. I followed her for a while and she's never had an issue with any cast until this one man. No wonder her husband had to get involved on the set. I hope she puts this behind her soon. I still don't believe her. Using the same slimy PR as Depp and Pitt to tarnish her reputation. Women in Hollywood have to be smarter and stronger to deal with these narcissistic men. Someone wrote, another Amber Heard. Ryan Reynolds needs to divorce her before she drags him down with her. She is the new Amber Heard. Blake has not been a victim of a smear campaign. She has behaved poorly towards interviewers because she feels entitled to. The footage speaks for itself. She's done a good job at tarnishing her own reputation by being a bitch. This situation reveals the darker side of Hollywood glamour. Saying something that tarnishes someone's reputation and then complaining that your reputation is being tarnished is some high level of irony. A lot of people in the quote tweets showing some support for Blake Lively. He can go to hell, meaning Justin Baldoni. I've never been a fan of her, but this article is so crucial to read. Just because you don't like someone doesn't mean they deserve abuse in any form. And then they attach a picture of the text messages. The details behind this campaign are diabolical. This person saying the lengths gone to drag her name in the dirt is fucking diabolical. Someone saying this man is a monster However, Blake Lively has so many receipts against him. So while the reaction to this lawsuit on social media was mixed, there was a lot of people who turned heel, who were supporting Justin at the beginning and ended up supporting Blake Lively after all of this was revealed in the lawsuit. For me personally, I wanted to wait and see Justin's side of things because I knew that something was going to come from his side before I like jumped to conclusions and just believed Blake Lively like straight away. Justin Baldoni and like the way he operates his life, his whole brand is, you know, being a male feminist, is being pro women. For me personally, I was actually surprised to hear all of these allegations brought forth in this lawsuit because Justin Baldoni is like kind of just starting, so he has a lot to lose. So for me, I was kind of like, why would he be acting this way? This movie was supposed to be his baby. Why would he risk that? When I was reading this whole thing, I was like, okay, I'm going to read it and wait for his rebuttal. And that's what we're going to get into in the next video. I'm going to be going over Justin Baldoni's lawsuit against the New York Times and Blake Lively. So what do you guys think about this lawsuit from Blake Lively? Do you think it holds water? Do you think they'll be able to prove any of this? I want to know in those comments down below. That's it for me. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye everyone.